Our next guest says Amazon's amazing run is about to come to an end. Chartmaster Carter Worth is at the Plasma to break it all down. Hey, Carter.
I want to sort of address what Guy was talking. It's really technical. The question is, can you be a little ahead of yourself and have give back risk? I think that's the issue here. There's nothing wrong with the stock. There's nothing wrong with the story. It's just sometimes things get a little too far too fast. Here is a log scale, so it's not the parabolic that one might expect for the past decade. And if I were to just put in some lines, I would point out the following. That this stock, as you can see here, has had plenty of givebacks. That's 30%. That's 32. That's 17. That's 30. That's 32. That's 16. That's 14. Just 2 or 3 months ago, we had a 16. So the issue is, let's move forward, is that kind of thing out there? Now, I want to zero in on this more immediate period in the past decade. And what we know is you've bounced off this line repeatedly, but you've come back to it. So the question is, in the past 3 years, are we due for that kind of thing? So zeroing in on the here and now, what we know is that it's the same circumstance. Do we have the risk of coming back? Well, take a look. Just put the percentages in. Again, this is just over the last 3 years. Same circumstance. Let's just put it in context. This can happen in just a matter of days. It doesn't mean it's bearish or bullish. It's just the sequence of an uptrend. Uptrends often have little givebacks. And I'm betting that we have that kind of thing now. Let's go forward a little further. And so I want to talk about its spread with Facebook and then move to Facebook specifically. Obviously, high flyers can come to an end abruptly. Here's the 2-year, 3-year chart of Facebook versus Amazon. Let's go a little further. Here's the past 5 years. And so, obviously, that does not imply that Amazon has to do what Facebook did, but we know that out of nowhere, things can change. So, Facebook, and then we'll end there. Facebook has this very distinct problem. It has this huge, heavy volume sell-off, and it has a second huge, heavy volume sell-off. That's all very distributive in nature. It has all the look of a topping out formation. So, one is weak and I wouldn't be long, and the other is a little too hot and I would want to reduce my longs.
I think Carter comes over without a doubt.
Without
Carter, please
question.
come on over. Michelle will bring the chair in.
So well dressed, too. I mean,
Better dressed than
nothing else.
anybody
Look
here,
at
that's
you.
for sure. Thank
Very
you,
dapper.
Michelle.
Very beautiful.
Guys.
So, Amazon right now, you agree with Guy?
Right. So, I mean, the issue is, again, it has nothing to do with its long-term story.
Right.
Would you rather? I'd rather probably own them both, Apple and Amazon, forever. But the issue is, can you be a little hot? Yes. Can you have a moment in time where, let's take Apple, all of a sudden Buffett, not that he wasn't involved in the beginning, he missed the first 10, 20 years. Maybe he's calling the top by getting involved. The point is, we just got to the $1 trillion, sort of an arbitrary thing. I'd trim. I'd write calls. There's a good option show on Friday that has.
30.
Love how you did that.
Thanks for the plug, Carter. In terms of the check back, to your eye, what kind of check back would we be looking for this time around?
Again, whatever nomenclature one, a pullback dip, sell-off, correction. I mean, those are all sort of, now the worst ones were 30, but it can be 10, it can be 12, it could be 20. And nothing would have changed with the juggernaut that is the Sears of its day, the Walmart of its day.
But that line, I mean, implicit in that is that there's a check back to that line, and that would be what percentage right now?
Well, if you came down in one day, as opposed to coming down over a period of time, that's basically 16, 18%.
So those checkbacks, when I look back on it, are a matter, I think you pointed this out, they could happen very quickly. And it looks like on one of the biggest ones, or a bigger one, it was 6 days of a checkback. And then within 12 days, it was higher than where the checkback started. So when we look at this, is it too hard to thread that needle, number one? Number two, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft are a huge component as far as market cap of the S&P. Do you think S&P checks back?
Well, so let's take the last part first. The top 3 stocks, Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple are now more than 11% of the S&P. They're the value of the bottom 250. Originally, that was the beginning of their bottom 200. But in the case of Amazon, can one do it? That's always the question. Does one have that kind of dexterity? Surely, listeners and people who love the show can do that if they want to be tactical. Certainly an option. If you're running a long-only mutual fund and that's not your game, of course you can't do it. Meaning, it's all about who you are in the market, knowing who you are, and then what you can or can't do. At a minimum, why not write some calls?
I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying. Facebook relative to Amazon. Were you saying you would be in the short term?
Oh, I think one has got a problem that's probably going to get worse, Facebook.
Okay.
And one is a little hot from my little rich, and I would say reduce or write calls, do something.
Okay, so it wasn't one relative to the other.
Just showing how they were quite correlated and things can change, right? I mean, you know, it's often out of nowhere, too.
I would just ask that, you know, if I look at, you know, our biggest concern is that FANG is now 30% of the NASDAQ. So this to me is the market question. Forget Amazon, because I think they're all trading together outside of Facebook, which has its own issues.
Right.
Give me that story now for the next couple of months.
Well, that's right. So, I mean, or it's not even so much FANG as it is sort of idiosyncratic growth. Large cap, because it's Visa. Visa's doing it's ISRG, it's United Healthcare, meaning unrelenting uptrends. Microsoft, Adobe, that have had very little give back. And yet, case after case, we're starting to get a slippage. Red Hat, broke and dropped. Then Facebook, then Twitter. Meaning, it's that kind of thing. There's always the next one out there. Does it have to be Amazon? Not necessarily. But that's the reason for having some either options approach or some reducing of a long.
Carter, always nice to see you.
Thank you.
Carter Braxton Ward.
And he gave a plug for that, which he wasn't on Friday, because I filled in for him because he was out gallivanting
plug for yourself.
ahead of a Labor Day weekend, as he should be.
But he's back now.
Quickly,
Yes,
though,
quickly.
to his point, March into April of this year, Amazon went from 1,600 to 1,400. You mentioned 12%. That's 12%. It recovered, but you did have a 12% move to the downside. 12% here gets you to 1,850-ish. That's not ridiculous.